Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal. Hello, my debaucherous darlings, and welcome back to the Goth Attacked. I absolutely adore furniture flips and upcycling. There's something just so exciting about finding free projects that are left out on the street, and I think it's really lovely to get to reuse something and save things that might have otherwise ended up in a landfill. I found this stunning record cabinet out on the street. Somebody had just left it out for trash, and it's wild to me what people will throw away. This thing is absolutely beautiful. It still has all the record equipment inside of it, which it doesn't look like any of it works, but that's okay for my purposes. I think my plan is going to be to redo this as either a bar cabinet or some sort of beautiful storage cabinet. I just love the lines. The front of this is so beautiful, and it's a really great solid piece. And all the record equipment is actually really cool, so I might end up using those for future projects as well. But I think the first step is going to be to start gutting this thing of all the old equipment and then seeing what I'm working with. So I have the cabinet gutted, and unfortunately there was a lot more mold and rot inside of the cabinet, and I wasn't anticipating that, which meant that I had to remove more of the cabinet than I was originally planning, but no worries, we will prevail. I think the equipment that came out of this cabinet is so beautiful, and I would love to hear your thoughts of what I should do with all these interesting pieces. So if you have ideas, comment down below and let me know what you would do with these parts. So I have some plywood that I'm going to cut up and replace all the missing pieces that I just removed from the cabinet. I'm going to end up mimicking the original proportions of the cabinet because I still want all of the side and front speaker panels to be there. I want the design to still make this look like a record cabinet, but because I no longer need the speaker fabric, I'm going to instead cut the plywood to the same sizes, and I'm going to wrap that in a beautiful damask fabric. And it's going to end up mimicking the original look of the cabinet without actually needing to be speaker fabric. I did some sketches to figure out how I wanted the cabinet to look, and now that I have a good sense of that, it's time to get cutting some wood. Okay, so I got all the woodworking done that's needed for the cabinet, and I brought it inside. Part of the reason is the next step is going to be painting, and we're in the middle of New England winter and it is a little bit too cold outside to be painting outside, so I'm going to be doing the painting inside. There were a couple adjustments I needed to make to the structure of the cabinet to make it work for what I want it to be doing. So one of the big adjustments I needed to do was adding these two posts in the structure. essentially beforehand, the bottom was just an open cavity that had all the record equipment in it. And so the front didn't open. It was a faux door, and so there was no way to actually access the inside of the cabinet. But because I want this to actually be able to open and have storage, I'm adding doors, which means I need posts so that I can add the door hinges to some sort of structure. I also redid the base completely. It had rotted so much that it just didn't make sense to keep it. So I upgraded the base and just added some plywood there so that we had something brand new and easy to work with. Essentially what's going to happen is on the side panels, I'm going to be replicating the old speaker condition, and so I'm going to be wrapping plywood in fabric in those locations, as well as in these two side panel locations, and then the doors will be in the middle. So the next step in this process is to paint everything, all the new wood pieces that I cut, the whole structure. I'm going to paint everything black because I love to paint things black. I am going to be doing this really beautiful faux patinaed copper metal look on this cabinet. And to do this, originally I was thinking I was going to do a black spray paint as the base. I like using spray paint for things like this because it's such an easy way to apply paint to a more complicated piece. Unfortunately, because it is so cold outside, I'm not going to be able to do that. So instead, I'm going to use a chalk paint as the base. It should still work the same way. It's just I have to accommodate for the weather conditions and use something that I can paint indoors. So we're going to get set up and we're going to start painting everything. So I have a pretty good trick for when you have to paint really intricate little shapes like this. What I will end up doing is I just use a foam brush and I go in and I use my fingers to kind of press the paint into these little grooves. And then I'll go back with a traditional roller and roll over it to clean it up. And so this can be a much easier way to get paint into these little crevices and make it really clean and really simple and easy. So I got the first coat of paint done. It's probably gonna take 2 to 3 coats. So a great trick, if you have to wait and then recoat and then wait and recoat for this paint, it's a 2-hour wait time between coats. And if you don't wanna constantly have to wash out your rollers and your brushes, a good trick is to stick them in a plastic bag and stick them in the fridge and they'll keep good. And then you can just take them out when it's time to recoat. So I'm gonna do that and then I will see you lovelies once all the coats are done. Bye, roller. So I'm working on getting the top attached. And essentially what I did is I added wood glue onto the ledge that was pre-existing in the cabinet and put the new plywood top in. And now I'm just going through and I'm using wood putty to clean up the 2 seams so they look really good. And you might be asking yourself, Angie, why didn't you put the top on and do the wood putty before you painted? And it's actually a little bit of a trick. I find sometimes it's easier to get a really clean wood putty seam if the 2 seams are different colors. It makes it easier for me to see what's going on, and it makes it so I don't have to do multiple coats of wood putty to get a really seamless look. So just something to consider if you're doing a project. I also find that using your fingers when you are wood puttying is a really great way to get a very seamless and clean look. I'm essentially feeling the edges as I'm creating them with the wood putty, and this helps me make an edge that looks really clean for the final product. Okay, I got the first coat of paint done, and I also got the top on, wood glued, wood puttied, so I'm waiting for all of that to set up. And in the meantime, the panels that are going to go on the side, I painted the back of them so that way when you open the cabinet, you have like clean paint everywhere inside of the cabinet. And so because this is dry, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach the fabric to the front side now. I have this really, really beautiful damask style fabric that I've had for a while, and I think this is gonna be the perfect piece for it. Essentially what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna wrap it like a present. I'm going to lay out the fabric, wrap it over, staple it down, and so it should be pretty simple. I have gone ahead and marked the side and which side is up. And this is important for my fabric because it does have an up and a down, and I want the fabric to all follow correctly. And so something to think about if you're doing a project like this, always double check that your fabric pattern is going the way that you want. Okay, so I got all the coats of paint on the cabinet, as well as getting all of the side panels covered in the fabric. So now it's time for the fun part, and we get to do the patina. So I did a couple tests of this. Essentially the way this works is I have these copper base paints, and the paint itself has suspended metal particulate in it. And so you put that down as the base, and then you use this patina spray, and the patina responds to the actual copper flecks in the paint itself, which is what is giving it this kind of patinaed green hue. I am then going to go over it and play with layering these different acrylic paints. I've got a mixture of blacks and golds because I want to blend it out and make it look like it's happening more naturally across the cabinet. The reason I did the test pieces is because I wanted to experiment with when I should be layering and what I should be layering at different times. And so I think the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to do the patina portion first, and then I'm going to go back over it with the acrylic paints after. When I did these, I had done it the reverse. I did the acrylics largely first, and then I did the patina paint, but I was noticing that it wasn't blending as well, and so I think I'm gonna do the reverse, and I think this is gonna be really fun and beautiful. I really enjoy patina paints, and they're pretty affordable and create a really different and beautiful aesthetic, so I recommend checking them out, and I will make sure to link all the products down in the description below. So I got the patina layer done on the cabinet, and a really good trick that I use when I'm doing this is I always make sure to apply the patina in the direction that copper or any other type of metal would naturally patina. So on the top, I make sure to spray on the patina and then I sponge it, because if something is patina on a flat horizontal surface, it's going to end up with this sponged sort of pattern, versus the front and the sides of the cabinet, as well as the doors, I spray it on and I let it run down, because if something is patinaing on a vertical surface, you're gonna get those kind of drip marks on it. And I think this makes it look way more convincing. I think it's a really beautiful and interesting effect. The next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to be using both black and gold acrylic paints. And I'm just gonna be going in with various sizes of paintbrushes and sponges and just stippling in a little extra color. Part of the reason I'm doing this is I have beautiful gold hardware that I want to use for the cabinet, and so adding in the gold is going to make sure that everything ties together really nicely and it doesn't look like the gold hardware is mismatched from the copper patina. And then I'm using the black to help fade things out and make the effect even more convincing. The cabinet is looking so beautiful. I'm really loving how the patina work came out. I did go back in at the end with the base chalk paint, and I just sponged over some of the edges on top just to blend it out a bit more and create the same sponging texture in the chalk paint itself. And I think it makes it look so good and convincing. I've got a bunch of small stuff to do now to get this cabinet fixed up and finished. I've got some old contact paper from a previous project that I'm going to use and just put that as the base of the cabinet, just have a liner in there, and it'll be fun because it'll be a little pop of color. I'm going to add all of the hardware on the doors and on the cabinet itself, and then I got to add in the fabric panels, and this is so close to being done. And before I get started on any of the small stuff, I am going to throw a protective layer on top of this. It's just a matte clear coat that's going to help protect the patina that I've created.
Well, you know what they say about best laid plans. Sometimes things just happen in a project. Things don't always go the way you want them to. I've run into a bit of a snafu. Essentially what has happened is the 2 door panels that I cut are too big and they don't fit. No. Essentially what happened is I designed them to fit between the posts, and because of the addition of all the hardware and the fabric, it was just too tight and now the doors don't fit. And so I'm going to adjust the 2 front side panels of fabric and make them a little bit bigger so that way I can get the doors to work. I do go into more detail about how I figured out how to fix this problem on our Patreon, so if you wanted to check it out and support the channel, we would love that. I know this has been a bit of a long ride, and so we're just gonna get this fixed. So now that everything is swapped out, it's time to attach the doors. We're gonna attach the back. I also got some great LED lights that I'm gonna put inside the cabinet, and then it's time to style this and enjoy the final result.
It's just sudden, but inevitable betrayal. I cannot believe how good this came out. I am just so pleased with this cabinet. It's crazy to me to think about where this started. I think that's the beautiful thing about doing DIY and furniture flips. You get to create something that is unique to you and your aesthetic. Now, what I've done might not be everybody's cup of tea, but I love it. And I'm so excited to have this beautiful piece now in my home. It was exactly what this moment needed, and it's absolutely perfect. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. If you enjoyed yourself, feel free to hit subscribe and click the notification bell so you get notified every time we post some more debaucherous creative goodness here at the Gothatect. And if you want to support us even further, check out our Patreon. We do a really great after show called the Mortem, where we get to go into more detail about the ins and outs of the project. And this one in particular was really difficult trying to navigate how to fix the doors. And so if that's something you're interested in, check out the link in our description for our Patreon. This has been glorious, my darlings. Until next time, be creative, live fully, and memento mori.